Happy Thursday, Facebook friends. Welcome back to Facebook. I'm Angie Garza, Director of Professional Learning and Educational Services at ROE 47, serving Lee, Ogle, and Whiteside counties. And if you're joining us back here on Facebook this fine fall Thursday, you'll know that it's time for another edition of Teacher Talk. I am unfortunately today flying solo. My friend, colleague, and co-host Ms. Stacey Dingus is feeling a little bit under the weather today, but we are going to have an amazing conversation this morning here all about early childhood and our Early Childhood Summit that is coming up here on Friday, November 17th from 8:30 to 3 at Sauk Valley Community College in Dixon. As many of you know, Facebook friends, early childhood is a continued conversation here in our office, from efforts around expanding services for families as well as early childhood slots for daycare and preschool, as well as conversations to support teachers with early childhood learning endeavors. And so when we talk about that idea of early childhood, we're really kind of talking about birth to age 8. And so what are those developmentally appropriate strategies to engage students in learning? How can we develop partnerships with parents as they begin their educational experiences? And so one of the things that we are always so proud and excited to offer is our annual Early Childhood Summit that I mentioned just a moment ago, held annually at Sauk Valley Community College. And this year is going to be a great opportunity and the focus of our Teacher Talk here this morning. We are so happy to welcome to our Teacher Talk platform our keynote for our Early Childhood Summit this year, Allison McDonald. And so Allison is joining us from Seattle. In fact, I think she lives in an island off of Seattle. So we are going to be so excited to welcome her to our Midwest, rural Northwest Illinois community here in just a few weeks to talk with all of our early childhood educators. But welcome, Allison, to our Teacher Talk platform here on Facebook. We are so excited to not only have you at this upcoming summit here November 17th, but we are also just really excited to have you with us here this morning, and really wondering if you could kick us off by telling us a little bit about yourself. I mentioned that you live in Seattle on an island. That in and of itself is so intriguing to me. But also you have 3 books that you've published. So tell us all about Allison and the world that you live in and where you're coming to us from.
I'm actually coming to you from Bainbridge Island, which is the ferry ride that, if you are old enough to remember early episodes of Grey's Anatomy, that they would take. So that is our ferry, and they actually filmed that. So my husband commutes into the city every day, but I live and teach on the island. So I am presently a pre-K teacher. I teach 3 days a week. And on top of that, this is one of my favorite things to do. This is why I got my master's, was in child development, was so I could do this. So I could train other teachers, because I love it so much. I love sharing my love of researching best practices as well as implementing them and finding kind of that bridge. That's my favorite thing to do. And yes, I do. I have 3 books. The first was published, I'm terrible, I think it was 2015, which is Raise a Rockstar Reader. And then I have Setting the Stage for Rockstar Readers, which is for educators, specifically early childhood educators. And both of those are published by Scholastic. And then my third one, I actually wrote for parents during the pandemic, because all of a sudden they were teaching their small children at home. And it's actually become a favorite of teachers in the classroom as well, because the activities are so simple. And that one is called Everyday Preschool. And I really hope I will be rewriting it specifically for teachers soon. I just have to find the time, and that's not so easy to do. Because besides teaching 3 days a week and then preparing all of this and writing, I still run a blog as well. No Time for Flashcards, which I've done for almost 16 years, I think. My son is almost 17, so it's got to be coming up on 16 years that I've been doing it. And that's just because I missed when I stopped teaching. I missed teaching. So I was at home with one kid, and I was used to having a lot more than one kid around me. And I had to do something. And friends were asking me about things. So that's what I ended up doing, was putting it all online. And that has opened a world for me. So that's been so much fun to do.
I love the title of that website, No Time for Flashcards. I had a moment. I have two children who are now grown, but there was a point in their educational journey where I thought, what on earth are we doing? This is the 12th set of flashcards that I have purchased on the school supply list. So tell us a little bit more about that website, and a little bit about the messaging, and you mentioned that it kind of opened the doors to other opportunities and communities. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So it's interesting because oftentimes early childhood educators, especially if they are kind of in my cohort, like right around 40, 50-year-old, we remember the book Einstein Never Used Flashcards. And what that book was all about was kind of a pushback to the baby and literally the baby Einstein movement of giving babies and tiny toddlers flashcards. And in my kind of tongue-in-cheek response, I was like, yeah, I have no time for flashcards. Now, if I could go back to 2008, I would have named it preschool.com, because that would have been much better for search, for Google search, than No Time for Flashcards. But really, it's my commitment to learning in the ways that young children need to learn, which is through play, and which is what we know about the way that children learn. It's not just play, it's also having that teacher or that parent or that adult scaffold to build on experiences, and using play to do that. So that's really my focus. And the blog, really, I mean, this was early 2008 when I started. So the blog opened up not just the ability to reach parents and teachers way beyond my own community, but it also opened it up so I could reach people that didn't really understand the importance of early childhood. Like, we, as early childhood educators, have such responsibility, and we can do that. We can do that job, especially if we have the right support. But not everyone values it. Oftentimes, teachers are valued by the age of their students. Professors are valued much more than high school teachers, that are valued more than elementary school teachers. And those of us teaching the very youngest are often not given that same value. And so I absolutely love the platform that I have, not just to reach the teachers and the parents that are educating their children at home, but also to reach the general public, to say, this is important, it's vital, and here's why.
We have an educator shortage here in Illinois, as well as I'm sure you probably are experiencing as well across the nation. And early childhood educators, those slots are some of the hardest to fill, just because I think there is this misconception that, oh, well, they're just little ones, it really doesn't matter. Or I just think that there's this gross misunderstanding of what early childhood education is about, and its level of importance as far as getting students off on that right foot and headed in the right trajectory, with parents as partners, and just all kinds of formative building blocks that are going on during that time. So I so appreciated that you mentioned that. Also, play. So we've been having a lot of conversations in our area about the importance of play and developmentally, as part of that developmentally appropriate education and learning experience for our children. Sometimes I think it's a little bit easier when we think about play in preschool, but even play as we are kind of progressing, even through kindergarten, first, second grade. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that importance of play and what that looks like in the classroom? Because I think a lot of people don't see that as a learning opportunity, when really it is so rich for our students to build a variety of different skills that they're going to use for the rest of their life.
So the reason why play is so important in early childhood, and I would argue for much later than early childhood as well, is that that's how children construct knowledge. That is how they learn best. And the reason why is because that's their language. So as children, what we know about how children learn best is that they learn best building on prior knowledge or familiar experiences. They learn best when they're social. There's a fantastic article, it was on, I think, NBC News, that talks about how chimps don't like to work together, but 3-year-olds do. That 3-year-olds love working together. They love playing games. They love being in teams. And not only do they love it, but they learn better when they love it. We know that when learning is meaningful, that it sticks. That when children are social, it is more meaningful. We know that when children get a chance to play with ideas themselves, that the learning is better. And so learning through play doesn't necessarily mean all free play. We tend to jump to that. And there's definitely a push for that in early childhood too. But we know that's not the way that they learn best. Children need ample free play. They need it to sort through things. They need it to learn how to properly communicate with each other. It's fantastic for language development. But we also know that they need constructed play or guided play. And that's when an adult comes and looks at what the child already knows and helps build on it. It's things like when I set out my free choice every morning for pre-K, I am guiding play that way. Now, my students can choose where to go, but I know that they've already mastered this skill. So let's set out something that helps build that next skill. That's what guided play is.
And I can tell that you are very passionate about play. And I love that. I love that about you. I can't wait to meet you. And I will have that opportunity on November 17th at our Early Childhood Summit. And, you know, as I was listening to you and reflecting, two things. One was the play piece, but the other, you talked a lot about building. And so that seems very appropriate for the focus of your keynote at our summit. You're going to be really dialing in on STEM and kind of thinking about what that looks like from a play-based perspective. And I'm just kind of curious what that, also what that might look like. We know that STEM should be very hands-on. We know that STEM is an important focus for learning as we look at integrating all of that kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. So when we're thinking about your keynote, what does that STEM piece look like? Can you tell us a little bit more as a teaser trailer, perhaps?
Yeah, it's really interesting because we talk a lot about play and STEM in the keynote, but really what I have found when I've done the research about STEM and teachers is that teachers don't feel confident about it. So really kind of my thesis statement for this is you've got this. Like, you've got this. I didn't realize how many and how widespread it was that early childhood educators did not feel capable of teaching science, especially like math, more comfortable, but definitely science. And it was kind of like, well, but you teach literature. You teach, well, yeah, I guess we call it literature. I was like, you're not expecting them to be doing Shakespeare. You don't feel like you need to teach Shakespeare. So why are you feeling like you need to teach biochemistry? This is how we do it. We bring it down. That's your superpower. And this is how we can do it playfully. So a lot of things, like just yesterday in my classroom, we were comparing apples and pumpkins. And a lot of it is really simple ways of making it playful. Like, okay, put on your science hat. And I mean, it's so simple that we forget, like we're expecting something more complicated, but it's not. Really, the trick of making STEM playful is to be playful, is to offer it in a playful way and to include it in your play. Because STEM shouldn't just be like, now it's STEM time. No, not at all. It should be part of everything. And that's really what I'll be discussing. One, that they've got this, meaning every teacher can do this. Like, we don't need to have taken science since 1992 in, junior high to be able to teach this. Like, you've got this. More than anything, it's about being curious and really tapping into your curiosity with your students. So I hope that I love this keynote. This keynote is one of my favorites. And it's interesting because so often I do stuff about literacy, and this has kind of become the one that I do the most. And I adore it because so many teachers just don't feel confident, and which is ridiculous to me because they've got this. Like, I am not at all concerned that they can't teach this. Any early childhood educator can do this.
No, you are so right. I think a big part of that STEM component is all about inquiry and children exploring and asking questions. And what a beautiful age to start that at, to nurture and foster that inquiry and that curiosity. Because so often we find that by the time they've worked their way to middle school and high school, they've forgotten that. So how can we celebrate that and continue to inspire that love of questioning and learning? So I'm really looking forward to that. And I guess I would be remiss if I didn't tell our viewers that you're actually going to be with us for the whole day, I think, because you're also doing a few breakouts dealing with play-based literacy and math, which goes very nicely with that STEM conversation. What are some of those, just as kind of a teaser trailer, again, for some of our folks who will be attending the summit? What is, maybe if you could share with us a strategy for play-based literacy or math that you've used in your classroom that has really inspired that love of learning and that hands-on exploration with students?
Because we've got such pressure from above about getting children prepared for kindergarten, which is that's a topic for another day. But really, truly doing is just simply using games. One of the things that is best about play and using play to teach is that it's so simple to differentiate. It's much easier. And we know that as early childhood educators, our children come in with such a wide range of abilities. So here's an example. For years, I've been tasked with teaching children how to write uppercase letters. Just introduce it. But it's really hard to do that in a fun way. Well, I decided to create a game called Roll and Write. And what I love about Roll and Write is I put letters on a dry erase die, and as a group, we do it. No one is checking, I'm looking at what my students are doing, but there's no right or wrong. It's just, hey, try it. If a child is struggling, they become my buddy right next to me. That's not a problem. But in a group of 10 to 15 children, they all have their own little boards, and it's a game. What's going to be the next letter that we have to write? And we use the whole idea of show, do, and then do it together. So I show them at first, but it's really simple. Once a week, I introduce a new letter, and then for the following weeks, it's the letters we've done before on that die as well. So we get some practice as well. There's always some children who want to keep playing after. But this game yesterday we did letter R, and I think it lasted 5 minutes. It's quick. It's an introduction. My job is not for them to master this yet, but I'm still hitting what I'm expected to do in a way that my students can do it in a playful way. And then I can also see who really is struggling and who needs to work on fine motor. But I can do that without pressure. They're not sitting at a desk. We're on the floor on our rug together. And so really, my early literacy workshops can be focused on those kind of things. How can we take these standards that we're expected to do, whether we think or know they're developmentally appropriate or not, and do it in a playful way? And our math one is very similar. Except really, my goal with math is to fit it into every part of the day. Because what we know is teachers are very comfortable doing like counting and one-to-one correspondence. But what we're missing are the bigger questions about math. And those come very simply in different parts of your day. And so things like circle time or snack or outside. And it's ways of integrating it to really create that strong foundation.
This has been just hugely exciting for me. It's all the good things about child development and learning. So, as you were kind of sharing with us here this morning, I was writing down some words that were jumping to mind. This is not atypical for me. It's, but here's what I wrote down. I wrote down curiosity, risk-taking, socialization, intentionality, fun, meeting students where they're at. Really, it feels like that's the heart of your passion. That's the heart of early childhood education. And so just really, again, tremendously excited to be able to welcome you from Seattle to our tiny corner here in Northwest Illinois, coming up here very soon on November 17th at our annual Early Childhood Education Summit. So thank you so much for, first of all, for joining us here on Teacher Talk this morning. Thank you also for saying yes to keynoting and providing some breakout sessions at our Early Childhood Summit. I know that every single teacher and early childhood educator that attends that day will walk away with excitement and understanding, and probably even a whole host of strategies to take right back to the classroom and use with their littlest learners. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Friends, that wraps us up here on this edition of Teacher Talk. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Allison McDonald, author of Everyday Preschool, Raising a Rockstar Reader, Setting the Stage for Rockstar Readers, and also the author of and founder of No Time for Flashcards website. Allison will be with us on November 17th from 8:30 to 3 at Sauk Valley Community College in Dixon for our annual Early Childhood Education Summit. So we hope all of you are able to join us. Registration is now open at our website at www.roe47.org. Click the Professional Learning tab up at the top, and that will direct you to the registration for this event. As we close out our Teacher Talk this morning, we hope that you have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, a relaxing and enjoyable Friday, a fall-filled weekend, and we will see you right back here next Thursday for another edition of Teacher Talk.